Hi, come on in. Thank you for dropping by. I really appreciate it. I've got some stories tonight, two, maybe three, about healing, and I think you might enjoy them. The first one took place, about 1988, I guess. Uh, I was teaching Bible study classes on Wednesday night in a local church. I really enjoyed it. It was the high point of my week. And after a class one night, a young lady brought her boyfriend up and introduced me to him. He was a Marine, and he came up using a cane, and I thought perhaps he had been wounded in action. But that wasn't the case. She told me that she would like me to pray for him. And I asked why, what's going on? And he volunteered that tomorrow he was going to the Bethesda Naval Hospital where they were going to remove his face and dig out a tumor that was in his brain. Well, that's not your ordinary prayer, you know. So I said, I'll pray for you, but I have someone who I want to join me. And I called a friend of mine. His name was Mike Pittman. Mike was a very godly fellow. And I figured in a case like this, I needed all the power I could get. So we explained to Mike what was going on, and he didn't say anything to me. He looked at this young man and he pointed at him and he said, "You've got something against your brother. And the Lord is telling you, you had better forgive him or you're going to die." It's kind of shocking, isn't it? Kind of took my breath away. And the young man said, "Well, yeah, I do have something against my brother." He said, "A couple of years ago, I was trying out for the Baltimore Orioles to be a pitcher. And my brother practiced with me. And we both went down to the audition. And they didn't choose me, they chose him. I should have been the one that they chose, but they took my brother instead. And that's why I've had something against my brother ever since." So I told him, if you don't forgive your brother, you will die from this brain tumor. He says, "All right, I'll forgive him." And I put my hand on his shoulder to pray. And Mike put his hand on the other shoulder. And I had what I call an epiphany. It doesn't happen too often, but sometimes at a particular moment, the Lord will show me something. And in this case, it came to me in a vision. And I could see Jesus speaking to a fig tree that didn't produce figs. And he cursed it at its roots. And the next day, the disciples came by, and they were amazed because the tree had withered and was dying. And that's what the Lord wanted me to do. So I started praying for this young man, and I spoke to that cancer that was in his brain. It was a malignant tumor. I spoke to the tumor that was in his brain, and I cursed it. And I cursed the roots of that tumor, and I commanded them to wither and to dry up. And I commanded the tumor to go away. That was the end of the prayer. Wasn't a great and long prayer, but as I found out a few weeks later, it was effective. The following week, I was teaching as usual, and he and his girlfriend came to class, and I thought after class he would have a story to tell me. He didn't, but he was still using a crutch. The week after that, he came, and still he didn't have anything to tell me. And I didn't ask. It's none of my business. The third week, he came without the cane with his girlfriend. And after class was over, he came up and he told me, the next day after you prayed for me, I went to Bethesda Naval Hospital to have my operation. And they x-rayed my brain. And they measured the size of the tumor, and it had gotten smaller. So they decided not to operate. The following week, I went back, and they did the same thing, and it was smaller. And the following week, last week, I went back, and the tumor was almost gone. And he said, now I've got full use of my legs, and they're not going to operate. They don't know what happened, but the tumor is gone. Now, there's something interesting about this story. This is the back room part of the story. The kind of thing you don't hear about miracles. But I'll tell you about this particular miracle. This young man was not a Christian. He didn't know the Lord, but the Lord knew him. And he wanted that young man healed. And that's why his girlfriend brought him to the Bible study. I don't know if that young man ever accepted the Lord or not. I spoke to him about it, and he just, he made faces, and I didn't push it. I'm of the opinion you cannot push a rope. But if he was interested, he would have grabbed for the chance. Okay, that was one miracle at that church. There was another one. One Sunday, I was sitting there waiting for the service to begin, and this young lady and her husband, who were in my Bible study, came up to me and asked me if I would pray for her. And I said, well, what's wrong? And I stood up, and she told me, well, I went to the doctor. We've been trying to have a baby, and nothing has happened. And I went to the doctor, and he did an exploratory thing on her, and he determined that she had endometriosis real bad. Now, endometriosis are cells from the uterus that grow outside of the uterus, and they can grow across the uterus, and they can block off the ovaries and do all kinds of things. So I told her, I said, I'll pray for you. I believe the Lord will open your womb. And I asked her to put her hand right above her abdomen right here, and I put my hand on her hand, and I just simply asked the Lord to open her womb and help her to have children. I think that was about all there was for the prayer. It wasn't a big, long one. They don't have to be big and long. And she thanked me. And she came by 6 weeks later, after class, I believe. She was pregnant. And in the years to follow, she had 6 children. Oh, I love that story. I really love that story.